So this week on the Pulpit and Porch podcast, we welcome Robert Kell back, who's been gone for quite a while. And Robert, we've over the course of the last 6 weeks, we've had 6 different voices on, 6 different stories, but they all really kind of shared the same theme.
Yeah. Purpose. Like, how do you find your purpose in life, and how do you find your meaning and hope? And so I think it's going to be a really fun discussion as we get to reflect back and look at those stories today and what they've meant to us.
Yeah, see the common threads. And so today, if you're joining us on the show, we are going to look back over the course of the last 6 weeks, the last 6 conversations, 6 stories that we've heard, and what they've meant to us as we look back and reflect on those. So we'll sit back, relax, enjoy. Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch. Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch, where we have real conversations about life, faith, and meaning.
There's a little bit of sports and pop culture mixed in.
It's all about living a life of purpose on purpose.
So pull up a chair, grab some sweet tea, and join us on the porch.
Well, Robert, welcome back to the Pulpit and Porch podcast.
It's so funny you say me welcome back. You did record a couple episodes. I was only gone 1 week. You've been gone like 3. So
Yeah,
I actually was
been a
here.
long time.
I was here. It was just all the studios at your house and your computer and all those things that you had with you. So me recording would have been a lot more complicated. So,
but it's been a long time since we sat in these chairs.
Since we've sat here. So yeah, we were at a state tournament for baseball. You were on the West Coast and so,
part of it.
Yeah.
And the East Coast part of it. Yeah.
So it's been a good time. I got a buddy of mine. I don't know if I think I might have told you this, who just took a job and is going to Kodiak, Alaska, and he's going to spend like months there at a time. And so he'll fly out, go, and and his whole job will be to take people fishing and hunting and things like that in Kodiak. And then when they come back to camp, he'll cook their food and they'll cook. And he's a professional chef and all this crazy stuff. And maybe his schedule will have a little more time and he can come on the show. But
sounds like a pretty good gig.
It's a pretty sweet gig if you like that. I would hate it, and people would hate my food, but I wouldn't. I don't think I would want to just hunt and fish all day. But
I went fly fishing in the river. I had a friend of mine who did guide trips down the river, and so he'd been begging me for a long time to go out with him. And I said, I don't have any of the gear. He said, I've got it all for you. All I had to do was go buy a fishing license with a trout stamp on it, which cost me like $680.
It's like 70, isn't it?
It's something like that. I don't remember. And so he had waders and everything for me. And we're going in like the fringe winter time. And so it's like October, November. And he told me to dress warm. And as we're at the place where we're going to go into the water and he's giving me these waders, he said, I got to let you know, these waders have a small hole in them. They're my backup. He said, so yeah, we probably want to get out like every 30 minutes or so as it starts seeping in. You just let me know. I'm like, hold on a second. What are we doing here? And so we weighed in and I caught a bunch of fish and he sent me home with a bunch of trout and it was awesome. And I thought, I'm going to grill these trout, how to cook these trout up. I could catch the fish when someone else baited my hook and threw it in the water for me, and I just held the pole and reeled it in. But I could not cook those fish at all. I destroyed them.
One of the things so I grew up bass fishing from a boat, not walking through water. And I've told my story before about like my dad taking me trout fishing, and I did not enjoy trout fishing at all. I enjoyed my friends and family and all that stuff, but I did not enjoy trout fishing at all. But my dad could fillet the fish out and just clean them up really well. And
McDonald's?
Yeah. And it's really complicated, especially with fish getting filleting it well and getting the bone out. And and you're always going to miss something with those little tiny spines and things that are in there, and you're going to miss one occasionally. But man, I bet it wasn't every 6 months when we had fish a lot, because my dad fished all the time. I bet we'd have something that was there, but it was always kind of deep fried with some lemon and lime juice on it, kind of stuff. Not anything like trying to grill it up and stuff. But I love trout. It's really, really good. I love bass.
Yeah, I tried to
I like
grill
good
the fish and it just fell apart. Half of it stuck to the grill and the other half just fell apart. I think I got 1 or 2 bites and it tasted so bad because I'd overcharred it and over seasoned it and said, well, that was a fun experience.
Yeah, I don't know how to cook it, but it would. So like I want to fish, but I don't necessarily know how to handle all of that stuff. So, man, we're in the middle of a crazy sports world right now. Like
We are.
We've got NBA playoffs are happening. We haven't talked about any of this. Like we saw each other Sunday, which is like 3 or 4 days ago, for the first time in literally
Really a
3
month,
weeks.
yeah.
I mean, if not a month. And so we saw each other there, and we have not talked any sports at all. So we got the NBA Finals game 4 is tonight, and so that's going on. Hockey is tied 2-2.
Yeah. My Golden Knights fell apart a little bit last night.
And that whole series has been absolutely bonkers. Like that was the largest win by either team in 4 games. 2 of the 4 have gone to overtime, and that's the first time that the team that got out to a lead actually held it and won the game. Because the other 3 games, the team that got out to a lead ended up losing. What was it? They scored 4 goals
in
the last
2 minutes and 35 seconds.
Yeah, something crazy. And so I think with 10 minutes left in the game, it was 3-1 or 2-0, and it ends up being 5-4 as a fine. I'm like, this is bonkers. Baseball. Braves
still
Dodgers
have the best record in the league.
1 and
Dodgers
2.
are second.
Yeah, and it's 3 of the top 5 teams are all National League, which is crazy.
The top 3.
Yeah.
Milwaukee has the 3rd best record.
And so it's crazy. And so like I want to ask you a question about the NBA stuff. And honestly, like I've said before, you and I both love basketball. You still coach it. I still play. You play some as well, but I play a couple times a week, and I'm pretty invested as much as I can and being a part of that. But like I've talked about, and I'm not going to, there's certain players just make me almost hate basketball right now. So the finals is fine. It is what it is. I'm glad San Antonio's there. I'm liking Wemby a little less than because I don't watch San Antonio very much, but I'm liking Wemby a little less. He's a little whinier than you see when you just watch highlights and you watch certain parts of the game. And so he carries a lot of that superstar 2026 mentality. Did you see what happened after the Knicks lost in downtown New York as people were leaving and wearing Spurs jerseys?
All I saw is that like 13 people got arrested. I did not see anything about what happened.
So here's my struggle. And somebody may go in and go, that was all fake news. And if it is, I think that may be almost a bigger issue than it being real news. But people who were wearing Spurs jerseys, people would walk up to them and beat them and rip their jersey off of them. And people were videoing it and making fun of it and laughing about it. And then there was some influencer that was wearing a Hawks jersey that it was all fake. It was all a joke. And he did it as a joke after people are, like I said, as best I can tell, I'm not smart enough to know what's AI and what's not sometimes. I don't know if this was fabricated. Like they literally could have, there's people who would probably get punched in the face. Like the joke the question was always when we were kids, how much money would it take for you to take one shot from Mike Tyson? And, and it's just going like, man, I don't know. I might could die. So
Yeah.
Do I get headgear or not? What do I leave my family if I'm dead? Society bothers me right now with those types of things. Like, well, I'm just struggling with why people would feel like, again, if all this is true, why people would feel like they can just walk down a street and just start like beating people and like ripping their clothes off and all this kind of stuff. And I don't, and it's mobs, it's masses of people. It's not like 1 or 2. It's not, some people be like, it's race specific or gender specific or something. It's none of that. It is a accumulation or a compilation or a group of people, whatever. I think I said 3 wrong words there of like every like tribe and group that you could think of coming together to rally around something. And then you get like famous people going, "Oh, this ain't cool." But the way they say it, you go, like, that's just a really weird, like, statement on Twitter.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I was just like, all the good that's happening. I think the Dodgers started really slow. The Braves has probably played out of their shoes a little bit. There's a lot of talk about both of our teams renting Scooble. You guys, well, actually, you probably won't have the money because probably not going to be baseball in 2027. Yeah. And so right now, you all would have the money to keep Scooble and bring him on down the road. There's a lot of conversation about our two teams, maybe the Phillies fighting for Scooble to try and get him. The Braves would be renting him to try and get a championship. There was another outfielder today that somebody was talking about that the Braves could potentially, and we would just be leveraging our farm system, which is it's back to incredible. It was always really good. Went through a season that it wasn't great, and we've got it back to incredible. Had the number 9 overall pick this year. There's just a lot of good things that we could do. And so I love all of that. I do love that Wemby is in the finals. I think it's fun that the Knicks are there, even though I can't stand the Knicks because I'm a Celtics fan. And then hockey is just, the playoffs have been incredible. A team kind of in our area is doing really well, and a team from your hometown is there, and so it's just fun, like what's going on.
And don't forget that the World Cup starts tomorrow.
So like literally, you and I were trying to schedule a meeting just because we hadn't seen each other in a while, and we want to talk about some just life and checking in on each other, and also just some work stuff as well. And you were like, "Hey, what's your schedule like?" And I said, "I've got to check the World Cup schedule because I cannot miss these games." And so me and one of my sons, at least, like, we're locked in, man. We're ready to go. And so, I just kind of look at all this and go, with all the good. With talking with Trevor, in same conversation with Thomas, I think just concerns about society from some similar and some different perspectives that they look at, and they go, "Hey, here's where we find some hope, though. Here's where we find peace." And this like huge black eye that kind of comes across all these great things in our society, but yet it's troubling, I think, with some things. And so I guess that kind of gets us back to the last episodes we were together, or the first episodes that started this journey of us, having 6 straight guests on the show that we wasn't just me and you, was with Thomas and Trevor and talking with them and those things. And so what impacted you out of those stories? And you can speak to some other stuff I said too. I know I rambled for a little bit there, but
I think that looking at the variety of guests that we've had over the course of the last 6 weeks. We started with Thomas and Trevor, and then we had Amanda, and then we had Luc Johnson on, and then I was able to sit down with Jason Castleberry and Jody Powell. You weren't able to be here for those, but so many different personalities that we had, different walks of life. We had people that are in politics, and we had people that are real estate agents. We had people that are creatives. We had a lender, a mortgage lender, and then we had a host of a wrestling show. And so just so many different people. But the thing that seems to constantly echo through their stories was, what does it take to have a meaningful life?
Yeah.
What are the characteristics, the qualities that give life meaning and make this existence plausible and fruitful and worth all of the effort and everything that you put in? And so it was 6 different stories, but there was one common thread through them all. And so why do you think that people's stories, no matter where they're coming from, no matter what the story really, the details of the story about, why do you think that people's stories connect so well?
Well, I think for me, looking at least the 4 people that I know and that I was really a part of the shows, and I got to hear their stories and interact with them. With the last 2, I'm not as connected because I wasn't here and didn't necessarily go through the emotion and ask questions and dive in and with that as much, just because I was out of town and we were trying to get some stuff ready for weird season. The four people that I know in that, Luke, Amanda, Thomas, and Trevor, were like, it really comes to where they find their hope, where they find like what sustains them. And my belief is that those four people walk into life looking to make the situation better. And I believe that all six of these people that we've had a chance to talk with and that the listeners have had a chance to journey through, though every one of them wake up every day going, how do I make every moment I walk into better? Several of them have a podcast or a TV show or something they're a part of. Some of them are storytellers. Some of them, like you said, they're mortgage lenders and realtors. And so sometimes it's more things like you and me. We stand on stages and we talk and we share truths and we share stories. We make people laugh. We make people cry. We engage people and we challenge their minds. And some of our friends in these episodes have done that. And some of them, like they're never on a big stage. They're never at a place where somebody's necessarily going to know their name. But I remember Luke specifically talked about a situation where he said, you just never like get a second chance to hear somebody's story. He said, and so when you're listening, it's more than just what's going on in that moment. And he was able to go, hey, I'm not the best person to help you.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I could go, I want to make money, so I'm going to take this because somebody referred it. But he said, what I've seen over and over and over is I walk into a situation and go, how do I help this person? Not how do I help myself? How do I help society? How do I help a community? How do I help this situation on a bigger picture? Not just help me succeed and pad a bank account or give me an extra day off or an extra round of golf or whatever it is. And he said, what I have seen God do, not because necessarily he deserves it or anything like that, but he's seen God bless and work. And those same people who took a different opportunity came back to him because his desire, and again, I think we would say that for the same thing for the five other people, that they see these bigger pictures of what life is doing. And so what about you? Like, what's that? How does that connect in your world when you look at those things and see that with those stories?
One of the things that really stood out to me, especially looking at Thomas and Trevor, we recorded those two episodes very close to each other.
Yeah.
Because our schedule has just been crazy the last 2-3 months. Our schedule has been insane between the two of us. And so we had to jam pack some things in. And I didn't realize it at the time. It wasn't until going back.
That's really good.
And checking to see that Thomas and Trevor both had a similar story in that they had very successful careers. They had paths that they were on that were leading to a clear destination that a lot of people would give a lot for. Trevor is at a very, very successful ad agency that was one of the top ad agencies in the country. And he was getting to work on projects with companies like Google and Coca-Cola and things that you do a lot in that world.
He was definitely a different level than I am.
And that's what I'm saying, that you would probably give your right shoe to get a contract with Google to work on a project for Google or for Coke or some of the things that he was getting to do on a daily basis. Thomas was traveling all over the world, speaking and getting on stages and telling stories and having an impact in that area and creating a life for himself, doing something that came easy to him, that he enjoyed and he was great at. Both of them made decisions to step away from the comfort of what they were doing, the steady paycheck that Trevor had coming in every single week, the guaranteed bookings and stages that Thomas had, step away from it because they felt a bigger calling.
Yeah.
A calling that would scare a lot of people. Let's go completely independent in my art and take a risk in that. Let's run for U.S. Senate with zero political experience. Those are massive, massive, not steps of faith, but leaps of faith. And yet they made those because I wouldn't even say they believed in themselves, but they believed in a bigger cause. They believed in a bigger purpose. They believed that their life could do more than what they were currently doing. And so often in life, I think that we get stuck in safety. We get stuck in what's easy, what's convenient, because we have responsibilities. We have people that are looking to us and are responsible for us. And so many times we miss out on the adventurous life that is in front of us because we're scared to take that leap. And I think that what Thomas and Trevor showed us in their stories is that there's a world out there that is waiting if we'll just take some risk and take some chances and follow the call that God has placed on our lives and on our hearts.
I just started reading a book, Creativity Inc., that is kind of the story about, it's one of the three guys, not Steve Jobs. I think it's Ed. I'm gonna be honest, the author didn't mean as much to me as the story of what it is, but it's a story of Pixar and walking through, like he's done a rewrite of the book, and in the beginning of the book, and
I was just going to say, I think I read that book several years ago.
Yeah, I've just gotten through the introduction, but he's redone it because he said people were coming up to him all the time and they were going, "You have seen," like, "Man, we just love seeing the success story of Pixar," and he's like, "Man, sure, there was some good moments, but there was a lot of failures." And so he's rewrote it to include the failures. But one of the things that he said, and so he works through the tension throughout. It's a super thick book. It'll take me forever to read it because it's not a primary read. It's a fun read for me. But one of the things that he says in the introduction is talking about, as a manager, as a leader, as a person that is working in an organization, one of your primary, if not the primary responsibility, is to remove fear from people that you are overseeing and leading, to give them a chance to fail. And I think that's, like, Melissa and I have been talking a lot about the word fear and just how that applies in society, and how does it apply to our life, and how do we walk through, and what does scripture say about fear? What does life say about fear? And so when I read things like that, I'm like, I got to find a good system to get these things typed up so that I can kind of remember these thoughts as we're just thinking through this topic. But like that, like what you're talking about, and like listening to the author writing this book, of just like, man, one of the primary things is people are naturally, and I don't think it's natural, I think it's a taught emotion, but we tend to be, as we get to be older, naturally afraid. But yet it is in those moments of natural, like, fear that people who have found a way to maybe fight that challenge, fight that obstacle, like overcome that, like, we have a responsibility to give people the freedom and to encourage them to not be afraid and to be willing to step into some really, really, really hard moments. And I think it was interesting in both of those stories how Trevor and Thomas both, that were their families, and they both talked about grandparents and just different things that invested and worked through in hard situations in life, and some really high moments, gave them a foundation and an upbringing to mentally be able. And I would say the same thing about Amanda and Luc as well, because, looking at Amanda's story and just some of the struggles that she went through and the tensions that she faced in life, and being able to, like, walk out the other side of those with such a passion, a strength, and a faith that allowed her to do some really hard things and be incredibly successful, I think is a really beautiful kind of thing.
Yeah, let's go back to Trevor for a minute. He was the first conversation of this. And Trevor's episode was maybe the most controversial episode that we've done. It generated quite a bit of response online. We got our first two, I don't even know if you saw this, we got our first two moderated comments that comments were removed from social media, from that one of the platforms didn't like the way that conversation was going, and so they removed.
It wasn't us. If you're listening,
it wasn't us. It was people that commented on a clip from our episode of Trevor, and it created some dialogue on the social media channels and the TikTok, or I don't even remember, Instagram. I don't remember which one it was. They deleted two of the comments that were made, but why do you think that honesty is so difficult to verbalize nowadays? Why does honesty make us so uncomfortable?
Well, I think that part of it is because truth has become relative. And like everyone, like you're told, like, what's your truth? You decide your truth. You define what you think truth is. And so if how I decide truth is what is really true, then it doesn't matter what you think, and you're immediately wrong.
I just had this conversation with my kids the other day when we were on vacation, because this Gen Z or whatever it is, that's the story that they're told. That's the narrative. That's the truth that they're told, is that truth is whatever you want it to be. That you can be whoever you want to be. You can be whatever you want to be. And truth is relative. I remember way back, you and I both did youth ministry for
a long time,
years and years. And there was one of these comedy troupes that traveled around and did all of the big things. I don't even remember what their name was right now, but they had a sketch where the person came out and had a red balloon, and someone else came out like, "Oh, Jonathan, I love your green balloon. That's incredible." And I'm like, "This is a red balloon." Like, "No, it's green." Like, "This is a red balloon. Like, it's green." Like, "No." And then someone else comes out, "What an incredible purple balloon you've got." And they have this huge argument and about what it is. And then the person, "Well, I was taught, my parents raised me to believe that that is green." "Well, my parents believed me that is purple." And then they have this huge, and at the end, they all walk off, and the person with the red balloon just comes to the front of the stage, and they said, "Truth is truth. No matter what you've been told, no matter what you believe, truth is truth." But that's not the world that we live in now. We live in the world that if you want this to be green, then it's green to you.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world has to accept that this is green, regardless of what truth really is.
Yeah, it's just such a, like, it's the you do, you boo type of mentality. And I don't really know. I mean, and again, for you and I both, Scripture is a guiding point. You know, the Bible is a guiding point of our life, and I believe as we look at Scripture, we can see that this mindset has been going from the beginning of time, that people think this way, and hey, I'm just going to do it my way, what I think is better. And so we see this just working through, and it's been a struggle for forever, but it does feel more intensified now. And maybe that's because we see it like in like, you know, IRL, in real life. It's like you talk about these things and like, hey, I was raised to think this, raised to think this. And I feel like every day I say a word that somebody giggles and walks, somebody younger, way younger than me, giggles and walks away. And I turn and look at my boys, or I look at someone and I go, okay, what has culture deemed this word to mean now? And they're like, sometimes they go, I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just goofy and stupid. Maybe they thought you were funny. Maybe they thought you were ridiculous. But 99% of the time they go, that word now means this. And I'm going, like, you can't just change the meaning of, you can't just change a color because you have now decided that red needs to be purple. And I just remember having a conversation with some friends one day, and they were talking about things in terms of planets. And they were like, if you don't like everybody starts on this planet, but if you don't like the planet you're on, you just go to another planet. And I said, well, what happens if you get through all the planets and you don't have any planets you like? They said, then you just make your own. And I was like, but like, where does that stop? How does that, and they're going, it doesn't have to stop, because what's important is that you get to be who you want, the way you want, on the terms you want to be and think and act and do. Not, there is no truth. There is no reality. There is only what you deem to be okay. And that conversation was very much a space of where I had told my friends in that space, I was like, I want to listen. I am not going to challenge anything. I will challenge eventually. And they knew that. And we did. And we walked through some stuff and we had conversations and we don't agree on a lot of things. But I remember sitting in that space and just going, this is like, I said, I don't understand. And they're like, what part? And I said, no. I understand everything you said. I don't understand. And so when I look at what Trevor talked about and things being controversial, Trevor and I have some things that we wouldn't agree on.
Yeah.
And we didn't get deep into those weeds because the goal, because you and I've talked about, both got some podcasts we listen to where people just bring people on and let them talk. And I think it's good to create dialogue more than it is for me to create an argument.
But I do think that back to what you just said, that the old creed in opinions, liberty, in essentials, unity, and in all things, love, we've completely lost that. That's completely gone.
Yeah,
it's in opinions, liberty.
Well, it's one of the things.
And in opinions, liberty, and in opinions, liberty.
You were talking about the remarks getting removed, and people can say what they want to about us. I don't care, but and I really don't. I mean, it's just. I mean, I don't. I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not Stephen Bartlett. I'm not Mel Robbins. I mean, I'm not any of those people. And you and I are just being us, and we're doing what we do, and our skin's pretty thick, and that's why we said, hey, we didn't remove those comments. I'm not saying things don't hurt sometimes. That's just life. I mean, sometimes things hurt, and you have to take a step back and get some perspective and go, okay, what does this look like? And man, what do I need to learn from that? But inside of that space,
why do you think that we struggle with difficult conversations around difficult topics?
I wish I had a better understanding of a true shift of culture. I was born in the mid-'70s. I grew up, in the 80s, literally middle 70s, 75. And I was brought up in the 80s and 90s and lived my life in that space. There's just some parts of me that I wish we could go back to, because you had to work through things. I couldn't just say something about you in a space, that I could be anonymous about it and talk. And I'm not blaming social media for everything. I think everything has redeemable qualities. I think cell phones have some good points. I mean, technology here, there's, people listening to this show. Some people find it valuable and want to talk through it. I don't. And so technology has some redeemable good qualities. I think people have just gotten to the point of, because of the things we've been talking about, and there's so many ways that you can go about life now, and you can see so much content so quickly. I don't think our brains are the most amazing thing as far as computers and information and how we process and go and do.
We're destroying them.
Yeah. And I think that like our minds just aren't made. They weren't designed. They're capable, but they weren't designed to process 1 billion 10-second clips a day. Like you and I talking recently, and we did a series at the church on like how you think, changing how you think and renewing your mind. And an author in his book says that we have 70,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of them are negative. How did we get to that place? Another pastor, and again, you and I both have do counseling. I'm not against it and things like that. There's one pastor that he talks about, and he just says, we started counseling 120 years ago, and yet we are more anxious, nervous, angry than we have ever been. Like, the things that are designed to help don't seem to be moving the needle. And that's coming, like, I'm speaking to a guy who his hero was a, doctor of counseling and psychology, and that was his job. And so, like, I think there's anomalies always, of course, in those situations. And I think the anomalies might be the ones that aren't doing it well, but I just don't know that we're designed to take on as much information as we are. And there's just not a way, we're kind of test dummies, and we're now seeing Jonathan Haidt, in his book, The Anxious Generation, the largest unmonitored test study when we look at social media and cell phones that has ever been done. And now all of a sudden, now we're seeing the results of it.
Yeah.
And we're just not capable
the results
of
are scary.
Yeah, they are. They really, really are.
Let's talk for a minute about Luc Johnson.
Luc.
What impressed you most about Luc? You didn't know Luc. I've known Luc for years. You know, what impressed you about Luc?
Well, and then Luc and I connected some dots in the middle of some conversations. I don't remember if they were on air or off air, but but I know Luc's father-in-law relatively well. He's a guy that I really trust and care a lot about, and as a leader and a pastor, and just someone who really gets the mission and vision of what Jesus calls us to. I think that I was telling the story earlier of like how he just sees the bigger picture of some things inside of it's not just about me, and to be that selfless, I just think that is a character trait that is lost on us.
Yeah. Why do you think that's so rare now? In fact, I would say, why is integrity so rare now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the line, and you do a lot of some creative post things and put some tags and some stuff when they go out on social media, and you put, why does everybody trust this guy? And it's so funny because you kind of go, well, why wouldn't they? And then you go, well, should they? And so you start asking these questions, and you go, I now need to know. What did he say? What am I talking about?
That's called a hook in the business.
In the biz. I don't know. Can I say biz? Is that okay word? I don't know. Has it been?
I found out about Riz the other day.
It's a 5-year-old.
I still don't know what it is.
It's a 5-year-old word.
I still don't know what it is.
Oh my goodness. I know that's so funny, but I think that our natural, and I believe you and I would agree with this, our natural instinct as we're taught and grown up, as we grow up, and because we watch TV, you know, that's the thing is like we're all being kind of shaped by something. And like, even though we think we aren't, we think TV's not shaping us. We think social media is not shaping us. We think we're our own person, but like we aren't thinking about what we think about. And when these shows come on and these things happen, our minds start to drift into these spaces and what we do. And I had a friend one time talking and saying, what if theater and movies and TV shows and music were not designed to be brainlessly consumed? What if every person is telling a story, and their stories designed to shape you to see culture, society, and life the way they do? And so you ask the question about, why do people like not really step into this bigger picture of trust and of selflessness, trusting, like, if we're selfless, I guess is what I was trying to say. I think the tension comes in is that we're kind of modified by culture. And unfortunately, as a parent, I was modified by culture, and my parents were modified by culture. And we can say the right things all we want, but sometimes we're doing the wrong thing. And people tend to repeat what's caught, not what's taught. And they catch what we're doing, not what we're saying. Mm. And I think guys like Luc are like real random cases in a lot of levels anymore, because he's willing to do something that I think a lot of people aren't. I had somebody just the other day telling me a story about a friend of theirs that had been approached by someone that was wanting them to basically fudge some receipts, and then they would split the money that was made on the thing. They would split the extra cash that was made there. And this person was just like, hey man, look, everything I've got goes through this and does this and does this. There is not a chance that and I thought, wow, what character. And it's in those moments I go, I want my kids to work for Luc. I want my kids to work for that guy. I want my family to be a part of that person's life. Not because I don't think we can't be valuable in other spaces, but when my children are young, I want them shaped by people with values that will move them down a path that's there. And so I just think that we've been shifted and modified to think that we are the priority. And if I'm the priority, it's me, regardless.
Well, and that's a thread back to what we were just talking about with absolute truth.
Yeah.
Our culture society has conditioned us to believe that we're the most important thing. Self-preservation, self-advancement is the number one option. And so when that's our truth, that the objective in goal in life is success,
yeah,
then selfishness instead of selflessness becomes the default. That I'm going to do what's best for me. I'm going to do what's best for my beliefs and to advance my cause, regardless of who it hurts along the way.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. And so it's.
And in that, I think that you can become successful and still lose.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We see that all the time. I mean, we see people. I just went blank on the book. I actually was reading Creative Inc. this morning, and I was thinking about a book on my shelf that it's a study, like a case study of 10 businesses and why they failed. And like they were crazy successful and they had all the stuff. They had all the juice. They could do anything they wanted and they all failed. And many of them ended up like ending everything, like ending their companies. They were bankrupt and they had to find ways to start over. And I think that's such
most great success stories have some component of that.
Yeah. And
my favorite biography is Walt Disney.
Yeah.
He filed bankruptcy like 149 times. That's a gross exaggeration. My favorite moment from our conversation with Luc was when we talked about how meeting with people, and you and I both meet with a lot of people. We discussed this with Luc. He meets with a lot of people. What matters most to people is how you make them feel, not what you accomplish for them.
Yeah.
And so often we go into interpersonal relationships with what can I give you? What can you give me that is a tangible takeaway? And that's something that I fall into a lot is I want to go into every meeting prepared that you're going to walk away from this meeting feeling like, all right, that time was productive. That was worth my time and worth the energy, the value, the investment that I put in to that time in a tangible, practical way. When really the way that I make you feel and walking away from that is so much more valuable and more important.
Yeah. I mean, I just...
People want to be known and be loved.
Mm-hmm.
People want to be cared for. They want to know that they matter. People want to know that they are worth something in the eyes of someone else.
Mm.
And in a world that, again, circling back, tying things together, in a world that is so consumed with self-improvement, a world that is so consumed with self-development and getting ahead, we don't often see people for who they are. We see them for what they can do for us. And that was something that we saw out of Luc. And also that we saw out of Amanda, is that I want to be something in your life for what I can see in you, how I can help you create your dreams and not just simply advance mine. And that's so rare in this world today.
I think the I see in you conversation is something that we miss out so many opportunities on. And I have seen that really be something that's valuable in people's lives, that really shape, challenge, and change them. And I've seen it be something that the absence of that leaves someone, and I'm not just talking younger kids, I'm talking adults that people have a chance to influence and work with and do, and they walk into those spaces and moments, and as they walk away from them, they just go, man, I wish that I felt more valuable. I wish I felt more important and more needed in this space. And the person leaving the conversation is thinking, like the person leaving the conversation that had the chance to say that is going, man, I'm so grateful for them. They are so needed. They have such an opportunity to make a difference here, and they just didn't say it. And I think that's what's hard so many times is we get into that space and we go, wow, I think I'm doing the right thing, but our words aren't clear enough. Yeah, it's really good thoughts of how we care for people.
So we had there was no question at all that we had the most attractive guest that we've ever had on the show in Amanda Marr. And also,
I can let you speak to that more than me for sure.
Yeah, you don't need to comment on that one. But one of the things that I really took away in preparing for that episode and then hearing the response and the subsequent conversation that we had in that episode that I wanted to dive into more with you then, that I'm excited to hear some of your thoughts about now, is
yes,
why do you think I so married
yes,
up.
Yes.
But why do you think that some people go through hardships and on the other side they come out bitter? And yet some people go through hardships and on the other side they come out better.
I mean, you were killing it with the bitter, better, the selfless, selfish. Like, you're killing it with your words today. You are absolutely doing great.
Well, thank you.
I don't know if you've typed all that up.
I've actually not typed any of that out.
Winging it, man. I love it. And so, if I, to just use Amanda's thoughts a little bit, and I'm not going to get these perfect. She said some things really, really well, and she and I, and actually I was talking to you last week and we still haven't, we all got so busy. We haven't had our empathy, sympathy discussion yet. And I can't wait to, over some chips at Chili's to have that conversation here soon. I think that we get to make that choice. And she talked about that. She's like, I get to, I got to make a choice of how I wanted to be in that space and in my life with that. The other thing is just the hope that she talks about of a foundation of ultimately faith in a relationship with Jesus. She talked about even inside of some hard situations that her family being a support. And I just think a lot of people, because we talked to some people like in these last 6 weeks, we've had some conversations that family wasn't always the best support system to get people in.
Yeah.
Like having, friends sometimes weren't the best support system to get people in. And those weren't necessarily bad choices that somebody woke up intentionally today and said, I would like to have a terrible family and terrible friends so that I can go ruin my life. It was just good, not bad friends. Just they didn't always, like those I seen you conversation things, they didn't say the right words. And I think that Amanda specifically having a support and a starting point of a strong faith that had a support around really allowed her to have a confidence that even though it doesn't make sense to me, if I had her story, I really would like to think I would be better, but I'm not convinced I wouldn't be bitter. It doesn't make sense to me, but it gave her a mindset and a shift to where when she walked through it, she really saw those two paths seemingly clearly from listening to her talk about it. And she intentionally chose to not let her life be ruined and torn down and those types of things. And
we have a friend that we were just talking about, Amanda and I, last night, the night before, that went through some unimaginable pain and hurt, loss, unimaginable loss that makes you step back and just look at the world differently. And it's one of my wife's closest friends, and they had a conversation the other day as we're going into a difficult season around some of that loss, anniversary of some things that took place, that she said to Amanda, who I was then and who I am now are two completely different people. And I feel guilty to be the person that I was before. That the person I was before was compassionate and loving and a good friend and a good worker and a good aunt and a good daughter. And now, as a result of that, that's not who all of that has changed. I'm no longer a good friend. I'm no longer caring. I'm no longer compassionate. I'm no longer empathetic. I'm not a good aunt anymore. And she said, at times I look back on that and I say, what happened to that person? She said, but that person's gone and I don't feel like I can be that person anymore. And so that's one person choosing one road, whereas other people choose a different. What characteristic is there that makes someone sit at the fork in the road, and maybe that's a great segue into our next segment, one person to sit at that fork in the road and say, I'm going to take the path of compassion. I'm going to take the path of better. And one person to say, I'm going to take the path of bitterness and resentment and anger.
I had someone recently go through something that they're just grateful to be able to walk out the other side of it. Literally, they're grateful to be able to walk out the other side of it. And in some conversations and some dialogue, it's not that, like, this is the hard thing about life, whether this is a faith thing, whether this is a personal journey. Like, for you and I, we feel like faith is a part of all those things. And so regardless of how people view the things that they're going through and stuff. And this person just kind of said to another friend, they were just like, I was terrified in that moment. And it has radically changed how I approach and what I look at and what I do now because of this. And so I thought, man, what a crazy, it has changed how they approach some things in life. It's changed the rhythms of who they are. And the thing that I try and remember, and it seems incredibly unfair, if I can just be honest. And this is probably going to be a little bit judgy. I mean, from potentially like with the thoughts, it just seems really unfair when we go through hard things. It really just seems like that if God Himself cares at all about life, why doesn't He stop? Why doesn't He give more opportunity to just like walk in the ease of, why can't we all just live at a beach and go walk in the breeze of the evening right on the ocean every afternoon? And we all have our own beach. We don't have to deal with the clutteredness of other people walking our beach. Why can't we have, and you and I have both been around beaches some, and when Melissa and I lived in Florida, we had some friends tell us where there was some really kind of like out there beaches. And so we would drive an extra 15, 20 minutes to get to a beach that we would spend 3 or 4 hours and not see another human. And you just sit there and the kids run and everybody's having a blast and you play on the boogie boards and you do the stuff and you have a great time and you're building sandcastles. And I'm going, like, why don't I get that? And it just seems unfair. And I think whether we're looking at models from history, whether we're looking at scripture, anything, you never see Star Wars or Jesus, whichever way you want to go about this, you never see a student that doesn't have to go through the same trials and struggles that the master has gone through. And I think the difference that we have is that inside of a relationship with Jesus, we have a hope. And it doesn't mean that we don't miss it sometimes. And one of the things that's been hard for me is I have looked at like raising my boys and I've wanted to prevent them from struggles sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to parent around the mistake instead of parenting through the mistake.
Yeah.
And I
failed miserably at that. I've
bombed
so
it.
miserably at that.
Bombed. And the thing that I've learned literally in the last 2 months has been like it more clearly. I understood it before, but there was something, and I don't remember what Mel and I were looking at, something really clear that we just listened to someone else say, and it really came through to us, is like, your kids are no different from you, and they are going to absolutely, like, embarrassment fail. And the response cannot be, how dare you? Do you know how that, or anything? It has to be, hey, we're going to get through this. How let's talk. Let's work, let's navigate this situation. You're loved. God still loves you. Jesus still loves you. We still love you. And let's navigate through this. And I think I can't tell you that in your story, person A and person B, one of those Amanda, the other one I do not know. I can't tell you that they didn't have those things, but I can tell you, listening to Amanda, she had someone that from an early age that were some mentors in her life, and, pastors and people who shepherded and invested and did, and parents and grandparents who shepherded and invested and did. And it wasn't perfect, but she felt enough of a support that she could say, okay, this doesn't define me. It may be a part of my story now, but it doesn't define me. And I'm just praying that I can help my boys and others that I get to invest in to feel that same hope, even on the other side of the hard.
I was listening to a podcast just the other day while I was mowing on parenting and raising up kids. He said, with my son, I'm always making him work through problems himself, because we live in a world now that parents overprotect their kids. And you and I used to ride our bikes without our helmets. I used to hop on an 80 motorcycle, a 120 dirt bike, and just fly out without a helmet, without shoes sometimes, and just fly out through the desert behind my house. And
we stopped the shoes things when one of our neighbors lost their pinky toe on a bike. we always wore shoes, no flip flops after that.
And that's the way that I am with my kids. I'm always overprotective of them. We were doing some hikes in the national parks in Washington State last week, and we're on places that literally, if you missed a step, you're dead. You're gone. That's it. You're done. And it just terrified me. And I'm sitting there in anxious, nervous wreck. My son has no fear. And so he would scale these boulders on waterfalls, and I'm just sitting there like, come down, come down, come down. And listening to this podcast, he was talking about how he has a 4-year-old son, and he said, I make him solve problems, and it frustrates him and it hurts him. And he gave the example that he said a few weeks ago, we have a stream bed, a stream, creek, river that comes outside of our property. They have several acres of land. He said, we were down messing around, and he was trying to come back up the bank as the water was coming in, and he was having trouble getting back up. And he looked at me and he started crying. He was like, Daddy, help me, pull me up. And like, you got to figure it out. You got to get yourself up, figure it out. And he's sitting there and he kept trying to climb, and he would slide back down into the water, and he was wet and he was cold and he was frustrated, and he skinned his knee a little bit. One of the times that he tried to climb up the bank and fell back down, and I'm right there. He can see me. He's crying to Dad, pull me out. And I could have very easily, but I said to him, no, buddy, figure it out. Figure out how to get yourself out of the situation. You're in a tough situation. Figure it out. And he's crying, Dad, come on, help. I'm like, you got to figure it out, son. And he figured that if he went down 15 feet, he could get right out of the bank and was just fine. And he saw the problem. He figured out a solution, and that's going to make him a better human later on. If I had just reached down and grabbed him. Or it could put him in
20 years of counseling. Dad, he goes, my dad was letting me drown in a creek and falling. No, I agree 100%.
But I have failed miserably at that I want to solve all my kids' problems.
Yeah.
I want to take care of everything. I don't want them to experience hardships and difficulties and hurt and pain. I want to do everything I can to help alleviate that as much as possible. I think to a detriment a lot of times.
I always think about, and Remember the Titans, there's the moment where they're having the team meeting and they start quoting the verse that even youth grow tired and weary, even grown men stumble and fall, but those who trust in the Lord, he'll renew their strength and rise up on wings like eagles. And they start singing it, and like eagle, they will walk and not grow faint. And I think that type of thinking is so hard. But it's things like that start to shape and move and shift how we live and work and do in our personal life, in our faith journey, and in our relationships with others.
Hey, we missed the segue, but we're going to jump into Fork in the Road.
Welcome to the Fork in the Road. Two paths, one tough choice. Which one would you choose?
All right, Robert Kell, you're at a fork in the road. Do you choose the path of knowing the truth or the path of protecting someone's feelings?
Well, those are different questions. I feel like if someone's
Do you give the truth or do you protect feelings?
I tend to go towards truth now. I don't think I've always done that. I tend to give truth adjacent, at least, if not. So, yeah, that's the way I go. And I was going to say, like, I felt like the first one was like, hey, do you prefer this or what do you give? And so, like, and I definitely want truth. I'd rather have truth than regardless of how hard it is. So,
would you rather have a lot of money or a lot of time?
probably time. I'm trying to process, like you're always these types of questions. You're always trying to process things. I'd say time.
Time?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I'd answer that one.
So that's the thing. I'm looking at going, like, when you say time, does that mean I get to live to be like 120 and I'm healthy and I can do all that? Because you only get 24 hours in a day. So it has to be length of life type stuff. Or your time is more productive inside of the thing and you get to accomplish more in the days that you have. Or, you're going to live what you live regardless of how you live. And then if you've got billions of dollars to do good with, those are the two thoughts I've gotten. So yeah, I don't know that I have a great answer, but those are I would choose time with the assumption that it means I get more of it, or at least what I have is more productive.
You're at a fork in the road. You take one path and you're going to live a life where you're respected. Another path, you're going to be loved. Which do you choose?
I would say love. Yeah. I feel like there's a weird balance in those two with some things.
Very tough for me. I want to be loved how much I'm respected. You wouldn't get that reference.
Maybe not. Is it a show?
Yeah, The Office.
Oh, yeah, I would not.
Not that exact thing.
No.
But,
no.
Yeah, pretty close. Michael Scott. Would you rather be remembered or be present?
Oh, present. I don't care if I'm remembered or not at all.
Would you rather have influence or have peace?
Oh, peace. I think that if I've lived, I don't know. I think that affects influence, but yeah, I think I'd rather have peace.
Be right or be kind?
See, I don't know that those two things can exist separately. Because if you just want to be right, you're kind of in I think that's arrogance. If you're just being kind, I think that's selfish.
Comfort or growth?
Oh, growth. Hands down. Sorry. Had to think through those two words. Yeah.
Would you rather be known by many or truly known by few?
I think we've kind of answered something like this before. Maybe I'm trying to. I mean, I definitely not. I don't have any interest in being known by many at all. Like just really known, intimate relationships with a few would be where I'm at.
Very good. That's Fork in the Road.
Fork in the road.
One last thought in talking about Luc and Amanda that I wonder if really summarizes what we learned from both of them. And that's that success isn't something that you achieve. Success isn't something that you collect. Success is what you become. My opinion would be that we equate success with tangible things.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with you on that.
And true success isn't in what we collect. It's in who we become.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I struggle daily. I had a conversation with somebody, they lead a nonprofit that just an incredible leader and does a great job of just caring for a community that they get to invest in. And they were literally, like, we were just talking about the struggles in the conversation around how do you manage and deal with thoughts and ideas, like when you take a vacation and you kind of go and you're like, man, that money could have been, you know, maybe used somewhere else or done differently, and those types of things. And I think it's just I do that with eating out. Even sometimes it's like, go out and grab something to eat, and I'm going, we could have eaten at home for a fifth of this and it could have helped somebody else. And so I think that, like, we tend to collect things to allow us to do more in your world, in the conversation of thought of what you were saying there. And I agree 100% that, like, who we are and success as far as being a person that lives out values and character, integrity at a level that's worth modeling is so much more important than collecting things and stuff that and by the way, I'm not saying it's wrong to go on a vacation, neither was this person. It was just interesting to hear her thoughts and voice around that, and just someone who sees deep need at a heavy level, and how that impacts and goes through them.
While you were out running around the world, not taking your responsibilities here on the show seriously,
I was gone 3 days. You were gone 3 weeks. So.
I got to have some conversations with a couple of really incredible men.
Yeah,
one of those was Jody Powell, who his life is pretty remarkable. The things that he does, the things that he's accomplished. And I'm interested to know your thoughts. I wish that you'd been a part of that conversation, because we talked a lot. He is the host of a show that deals with men's issues and men's health and mental health and real men talk. And we talked a lot with Jody about why men struggle so much with having deep conversations and honest conversations. And it really, again, ties back to Trevor and his need for honesty in life and desire to really be authentic to himself and have the conversations that he wants. But why do you, Robert, think that so many men struggle with honesty and openness?
So you know me, I'll sit and talk about everything and cry the whole time. So I'm maybe not always the best barometer of some of those things. I think in general, like it's so hard. Like when you look back through culture and society of bringing up, I think that things have shifted, of course, over 2026 years of what we really have these great understandings of civilization and how they function and work and did and things, of this, 80 timeline. And I think that families used to really work together and do things, and it was more conversational, and you lived life together. And if dad was a blacksmith, everyone was a blacksmith. If everybody farmed a little bit, regardless of what you did, because that's the only way you could get food. And there was this communal living, and you sat around, and so you were always in some spaces. You kind of continue to move forward, and you shift through society and culture, and things get bigger. And like I was listening to somebody say, we tend to move towards like locations that provide more. Well, when things start to provide more, it changes the dynamic of life. And so now, instead of families working together for a season and of culture and things, men went out and did something that wasn't a trade that you necessarily handed down to your kids. It became something that you did, that you had a career and you provided for. You weren't living life together. You were providing something for, or you were still providing, but instead of providing life experience and training and genuineness, you were providing resources to give what they wanted. I think that in this whole, then you get to this whole, this John Wayne mentality and this idea of, real men just kind of ride a horse. And
yeah, don't you think that's a fake masculinity?
Like you and I both grew up in a book a guy named Walt Mueller wrote, it called Opie Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And the opening line of that book says, at best, Opie was a fictional character on a TV show. And then he spends the rest of the introduction working through, but yet that's what many youth pastors are trying to create is Mayberry, and every parent, even if the youth pastor is not, even if the youth pastor is aware, every parent wants Mayberry created for their kid. And so we started seeing a culture of men, that men are strong and tough, and real men don't share emotions, and real men don't, like, let people see their weaknesses. They're strong, and they spit and grunt and do these things.
You have to have a good beard.
Yeah, which I do not. And so I kind of look at those things a little bit and I go, man, that's a complicated world. And so working very loosely through some cultural things that I see and some shifts in society and how we've moved and navigated some things, I think we started to value values that were not what was designed and created and intended for us to live out and do.
I would agree with that.
But
I agree with what you're saying. There's another side of it, though, that
Probably.
we crave authenticity, but fear vulnerability.
Sure. Yeah.
Why is that?
Mel listens to more podcasts on parenting than I do, and so most of the stuff that I get is from her. I don't know that I can say. I think in today's world, she was talking about this whole idea that, like, the fear that kids carry, and they're scared to do anything because they know everything they do is going to be recorded and posted online. And so if it goes well, they're a hero. If it goes poorly, they're a goat, and not a goat like Tom Brady or Michael Jordan, like a goat like, the scapegoat that really, it played out poorly for them. And I think that that's the struggle, is that, like, life is so, and so I don't, for me, and for, like, authenticity, like openness wasn't, I'm going to say this. Like, growing up,
I'm not good at vulnerability.
Yeah.
I'm not. I want authenticity out of my relationships, but I'm not good at vulnerability.
And you might be better to answer that, because, like, if you sat down and asked me a question, I would tell you, and I wouldn't even blink, and I don't overly care how it makes me look. I tend to.
Yeah, I think for me, it's not that I care how I look. It's self-preservation. And so it's vulnerability opens me up to hurt. Vulnerability opens me up to attack. It opens me up. It makes me vulnerable. It makes me vulnerable. And so authenticity, I'm great with. You want to ask me any question, I'm going to be truthful. I'm going to be honest with you on that. But you ask me to really get deep down and be vulnerable with you, that's reserved for very few people that I know are safe, that I know there's not an ulterior motive. I know there's not an angle that they're taking.
Yeah. And I grew up, mom and dad, like, a lot of people did. And my dad wasn't, like, conversations didn't come really easy. We didn't talk about much. We didn't really talk about anything. My mom put a chair somewhat similar to something like this, like a high back chair in the kitchen, so that when we came home, we had a comfortable place to sit, because she wanted to hear our stories. And so I just grew up in a space where someone wanted to hear what I had to say, and they actually cared that. And so I just got to a place, and it's what made the last couple of years, complicated. I mean, it was something just a few weeks ago, something great happened in one of the boys' lives, and it was just a really cool experience. And I literally picked up my phone about to call my mom in end of July. We're pushing the middle of June, and the end of July will be 2 years that mom's been gone. And I just kind of go, man, this is a complicated space, because when someone actually cares and wants to hear, I think that there's, like, the other part of this is, I don't think most people actually care. I think we have conversations to get to talk about ourselves. And so it's, and then, like you said a little bit, maybe we only share the parts we want to share.
That's so true.
Because we can't trust anybody, that it's not going to end up on a podcast now, or in a conversation or a sermon illustration, or you become the next, oh, hey, I just wrote this, because you're a storyteller and you just wrote this whole new, bit that you're getting ready to do, this whole new story, this presentation that you're getting ready to stand on stages and tell to thousands and thousands and thousands of people over the next 5 years as a part of your, because storytellers, like comedians, have routines, and you have the stories you tell and people kind of want to hear them. And you're getting ready to use that person's agony as the catalyst to make you money. And I think that's what we're afraid of. We're afraid of becoming the next, Tony Marr story, or the next Nate Bargatze joke, or, whatever it is in those things. And I think that's really, really a complicated kind of world.
So, Robert, we touched on this a little bit, but if real masculinity isn't John Wayne, it's not Chuck Norris, the Marlboro Man, it's not Liam Neeson in Taken, what is real masculinity? What is healthy masculinity? I want to say, not real.
Man,
what's healthy masculinity?
I don't know that I can fully answer all of this well. I can talk about me a little bit.
Is it a good beard?
It is. Hopefully not, because this is my good side.
Flannel shirt.
If this is not my good side, so I'd have a very thin beard if we were reversed. But
which is how we started for our listeners.
He
was not happy with the way his beard looked.
I was adamant that we switch it out.
Changed seats.
Man, I think the podcast that you were talking about, with the guy talking about helping his son learn to work through some things, I think that we were designed to be creative. I think God designed us to. Now, He works with us through the Holy Spirit, through guidelines and basic common sense and things that He gives us in our minds and our hearts and our souls, and we can feel these things, and we have some stuff there. And you just start to look at what's it look like to be a child that is honoring to the Father. What's it look like to be a husband that's honoring to the Father? And if I was going to put something on paper, I would start in, the story that when Jesus was asking, what's it look like to love God with everything you got and love your neighbor? And I think your neighbor literally means everyone, but like it starts literally, it's sometimes in the other half of the bed or the room next door, with your spouse and your kids. I think it means being able to be honest. It means owning up to some hard conversations and listening to some things. And again, you're going to have something that's probably a little better put together than some of these thoughts that I'm having here. But like when we talk about this, like these are and I'm not saying what I'm saying is bad. I just, like, my mind when I go to this, maybe it's because it's what I'm studying and working through right now. But how do I love what you said?
I really like what you said. If we were to put a word on masculinity, I would probably say culture's definition of masculinity would be strength. That it's strength. But what you just said is spot on, that strength without honesty is a prison.
Philippians 2 probably in that thought and vein as well. I mean, just, who being in very nature God didn't consider strength, power, something to be grasped, but took on the nature of a servant. And that's just the whole thing. How do you love and care for and serve those that sit around you? And no, Tony, that's really, really, like I said, I feel like you would button that up a little better than what I was kind of getting through. But
yeah. And then we had a conversation. I had a conversation with Jason Castleberry.
And by the way, I'm super sad that I missed both these, because Jody, he jumped out of planes, and
Jason jumped out of planes.
Sorry,
yeah.
Jason jumped out of planes and all these other crazy things and stuff like that. And then Jody he does wrestling.
He's the wrestling guy. Yeah,
and you have never. I mean, I'm sure you've seen 10 seconds of a match here and there, but you've never watched wrestling.
I've not watched wrestling, no.
I grew up with like my favorite wrestlers, and I would stay up late and watch the specials, and my parents would wake me up early on a Saturday.
Yeah, you would have loved the conversation with Jody.
I would have so enjoyed it. I was doing some video work for a guy one time, and we're walking through downtown Bristol around the Speedway doing something, like he was doing some stuff for the Speedway, and we're just doing man on the street almost type videos. And me and the other guy that was with him, we both kind of went, is that Ricky Morton? And I didn't know Ricky Morton lived in the area, but
I know Ricky Martin.
No, this isn't Live in La Vida Loca. This is the Rock and Roll. This is the Rock and Roll Express from the 1980s.
I don't know
Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, Rock and Roll Express, like world tag team champions. Like they were wrestling like against Ric Flair and all of those guys. But like we saw this guy, and the guy we were working with, he was just like, I have never seen two adult men act more like children in all of my life. And I was like, I don't think we acted that poorly, but like it was a pretty cool thing to get to meet a guy that literally was like a childhood hero. So I would have loved to have heard of Jody's conversations around
the parallels again between those two conversations that you weren't a part of.
Yeah.
The two guys who live on opposite sides of the country, two guys who do not know each other at all. Their only connection would be me, and they don't know that. But yet their stories were intertwined, even though their stories couldn't be more different.
They're both doing stories around men, podcasts and shows. And
one is a military veteran who was as far from faith in Christ as you could possibly be until just a couple of years ago. The other is someone who grew up in the church and does a Christian wrestling program and a show on being men of faith. And so two completely different guys, but yet the common thread that ran through both of the conversations that we had is, why is asking for help so hard? Mm-hmm. And what does real strength actually look like? And in Jason, it was incredible to see the story and the overcoming his story, the redemption in his story, that a lot of people are facing battles that nobody sees.
Yeah.
A lot of people are living wars that nobody knows are happening. And the way that you overcome those three things, the way that you work through those things, the hardest part for him in his story was often that nobody knew that he was even fighting the battle. Mm. And that comes back to his lack of vulnerability and feeling like I'm fighting this battle alone, but yet I'm not opening up and sharing my struggle with anybody.
So let me ask you this. Like you definitely spent more time in those conversations than I did, because I was not in those conversations. But when you think through that, and I'm trying to look at this from a whole bunch of perspectives. You've got Jason, no faith background, living life, doing things. You got Jody, grew up in the church, around faith, around those thoughts. And so whether it's you and your buddies hanging out at a pub, throwing darts and watching shooting pool and watching the local sporting events, or you're sitting in a Bible study, like, why is there such this gap? And I'm hoping that you can help me navigate and think through some of this a little bit too. Why is there such a gap inside of culture, where even inside, regardless, because it doesn't seem to be I'm saying faith. I'll say it this way. It doesn't seem to be a church thing. I do think it's a faith thing, whether you're in a pub or whether you're in a church trying to have these conversations. But why, whether you're in a coffee shop, a pub, a church, sitting at the ball game and just a bunch of dudes hanging out, that where there isn't this conversation and this authenticity that leads to some healing? Why on the golf course, when you've got 4 hours together and you're literally standing half the time waiting for the group in front of you to move, why is there not this conversation? Why have we gotten away from that? What were the things you heard, and what are the things that kind of stuck out to you that moved the needle for you, and how we could address these types of things?
Well, you've already answered that question over the course of this episode, in that we live a life that is of self-advancement. Mm. And so even in some of our closest relationships, that's always at the forefront of our mind is what is this going to do for me? How is this going to hurt me? And so vulnerability is something that on the golf course that you're with four friends, maybe being vulnerable about something will cause a negative view of you in your mind, that this will cause this person to think different of me. It may affect our relationship. It may affect the ask that I'm getting ready to make on the 16th hole and try to close a deal by the 18th green. And all of these factors play into our mind constantly, that if people really knew who I was, if people really knew the things that I was struggling with, they wouldn't want to throw darts with me. They wouldn't want to go have a beer with me. If they really understood my struggle, they wouldn't want to be my friend. Vulnerability is scary, Robert. And I think in a world where we're constantly taught that you have to get ahead, you have to do for yourself, that you have to continually be moving and striving forward to be more, that the thought of opening ourselves up to things that could damage that is culturally ingrained in us. And so we just simply don't do it. And I think that the answer is some of what we talked about in Fork in the Road. Would you rather be known by many people or truly known by a few? And it's having those few people that you really can be vulnerable with. I don't know that the answer is to be completely open and honest and vulnerable with every single person that you come across.
Agreed.
But you have to have someone that you can be vulnerable with, that you can be really, truly honest with. My wife asked me that question just the other day. She said, who do you have in your life that you're able to really, truly let all the trash out, all the garbage out, just lay it all out and trust, believe, know that they're not going to judge you, that they're not going to walk away, and that they're not going to use it against you in 3 months, 6 months, 2 years down the road.
Now, there's a lot there, and
if you don't have that person or those people in your life, that's a lonely place to live.
And it's hard too to navigate that, like, because we tend to have 2 or 3 different types of relationships. People we don't know that well, or people we don't know at all. We'll put over here in a crew. People we know, we spend a decent amount of time around, or maybe even a lot of time around, but we're not like super intimate with them. And then people that we spend a lot of time with that we would feel that we're intimate with, and then you drop nuggets to see,
is this safe?
Yeah. And there's always that moment where you drop something and you go, okay, I'm actually going to be vulnerable here. And I remember one thing specifically in my life within the last 2 or 3 years that I kind of shared. I had like 4 or 5 different people ask me some stuff and kind of go almost like, are you okay? And I remember looking at one of them going, no. And they've never followed up once. Not once. Because the reason they asked had an agenda, and I knew it, but I didn't care. Because the agenda they had, I was at a place where I'm just like, you can have it. I know why you're asking me. I don't care. So I'm just going to tell you the truth. And it's either going to go really well or poorly for one of us.
Yeah.
And really, at the end of the day, it just kind of faded and didn't go anywhere. And there was like 3 or 4 other people that I was just kind of in that same season. I was just like, here's where I'm struggling. And people that I've spent, 20, 30 years of life with, just kind of going, okay, like how about how about that new TV show? What do you think? And I'm just going, okay, so here's the tension where I'm at. And so it's like in that space of like wanting to go, and it's kind of why I think people have started going to counselors. And counselors, they can say whatever they want because they're the only people that are listening, but you're paying them to listen.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I heard, and honestly, I wouldn't I probably wouldn't, like, just because people are human and,
but you're paying them to listen.
You're
paying them to not judge.
Yeah.
And you're paying them because it's a safe space that you know that they are legally obligated.
Yeah. And if you find out they break that trust, you'll be a very rich, unhappy person. I mean, you'll still be unhappy and stressed and struggling. And I heard somebody say that, like,
and most of us can't find those characteristics in someone outside of a paid relationship in their life.
And that's the thing is, like, I heard a pastor say that, like, counselors replaced pastors. And in that space, then advice became a lot more self-help and a lot less faith help. And
well, we could go down such a rabbit trail.
You definitely could, because it's there. I'd love to hear the thoughts, and I know that of Jody and Jonathan as well, and some things there that you had.
Yeah, I know we're running out of time here today.
We are.
You've got places you've got to be. It's been a month since we've been together, so in closing this thing out, I would love for us to hit a quick little segment of Porch Picks.
All right, folks, pull up a rocking chair and grab yourself a glass of sweet tea. It's time for Porch Picks. This is where we give you our top recommendations on, well, just about anything. If we like it, we're picking it. No deep theology here, just good old-fashioned opinions. So sit back, relax, and get ready for this week's Porch Picks.
It's been a month since we've been together. A lot has happened. A lot of things that we've taken in. What's something that you've been dying to share with me and with our listeners over the last month?
I don't know that I have anything that is just like dying to share that's really radically changing my life. I am enjoying Creativity Inc. Renovating the Heart by Dallas Willard. I've read that in the last couple of months. It's been incredible and just really, really challenging. I'm trying to think. John Mark Comer and his Practicing the Way is doing a 12-part series called Water from a Deep Well with Jerry Sitzer, and they're talking like literally they started at like 50 AD and have been working slowly through culture and life and things, and so it's been really encouraging to me. We were watching a ton of sports, and honestly, our TV is about to be solely World Cup for the next 5 weeks because that is what we love. We didn't know you had to put in a request, and so we had talked about the Barcelona's national team, Spain's national team. I'm so sorry, is in Chattanooga. And Barcelona is who Lamine Yamal plays for on his other thing. And so my 19-year-old, Lamine Yamal is actually a few months younger than him. And literally Fox just named him the #1 player in the World Cup, which we do not agree with, by the way. He's great, but he's definitely a top 5 player.
ESPN had him at #2.
Yeah, I don't think that he's #1. I didn't see who ESPN had as #1. Do you remember? Was it Mbappe?
Mbappe was 14.
That's ridiculous.
Mbappe was 14.
That is stupid. Brody did not like that Harry Kane was 3rd with Fox.
Harry Kane was 3rd with ESPN as well.
I think Harry Kane's better than Brody likes him to be. But anyway, so we haven't watched a lot. Mel and I watched a show, not overly or under recommending it. It's like called The Madison. Michelle Pfeiffer, Kurt Russell. And the thing that was interesting to me from that show is, this doesn't take anything away. The premise is they have a lot of money. They're in New York, and he has this hunting fishing cabin with his brother in Montana. I think Montana. It's terrible. And he died. He and his brother die in a plane crash, which is again very much part of the show. And the whole story is these flashbacks and then her and the kids and everyone and the grandkids learning to going to this place, learning what that culture's like, understanding all of these things. And man, it's Taylor Sheridan, which of course no one's shocked. I mean, at that he's producing and writing everything right now. But so those are the things that those are probably the things that in the last 4 to 6 weeks, or 3 or 4 weeks, that I have been working through and doing that was really cool. And I got to go to a Colson conference for free. Chuck Colson, Worldview Apologetics guy, and that was a ton of fun. And I highly recommend a movie that they did on it's on YouTube that you can watch for free called Truth Rising. And it was really challenging and very, very good. And just caused me to think about some stuff, whether you agree or disagree with the Colson group and focus on the family. was a really well done video that just challenges you to think about life and culture. And Oz Guinness, who's 80 something years old and writes inside of those things, and John Stone Street just did a really good job and stuff. So anyway, what about you? It's been 3 weeks since we've had these types of conversations. What have you been? I mean, you've been seeing the world, but
yeah. So in preparation for going to Gettysburg, I did a lot of reading on the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, all of that kind of stuff, which just learning about our history is pretty incredible. And some of the steps and conversations that we had around Trevor and Thomas and stuff today, even Jason, and the things that Lincoln stood for, the conversations that he had that no one was willing to take, literally took our country to war on the brink of a new nation and separatist nation. And so that was fun to dive into that. Spent a lot of time on airplanes, and so watched a lot of really bad movies. I watched the newest Jurassic Park movie.
Seen it?
Not good. Watched the newest Karate Kid movie.
Have not seen it.
Not good. Watched.
You talking about the one that brought Danielson back and had
Jackie
Chan with it? Okay. Yeah.
Not good. Watched a movie from the 90s that had Reese Witherspoon and Owen Wilson. What was it called? How Do You Know? How Do You Know? Not good. Yeah. Watched a lot. I've been watching the show Taken. 2 seasons of the show Taken.
Yeah, that's like from like 2016 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, so it is the character that Liam Neeson plays when he's younger, how he became the man with a special set of skills. I will find you and I will kill you. How he became that person. The show makes absolutely no sense because Liam Neeson, Taken came out in the early 2000s, and Liam Neeson was in his probably late 60s, early 70s when that show came out, and the subsequent Taken 2, Taken 3, Taken 18. He is definitely in his 60s, 70s. The show Taken, which is how he became that guy and developed his certain set of skills, takes place in like 2015. And they have all the technology. It's the same character, same name, same everything. He doesn't have a daughter yet who can be born, but everything is, they're using cell phones and computers and talking about things that are of 2015. It makes absolutely no sense at all. So
he was 56 when he did Taken.
In what year?
08.
In 08, he was 56.
2017, they did
the show Taken, and he's 20. He's probably 25. Yeah. And it's not like the show, it's not like they're putting the show back in the 70s or 80s.
No,
the show is in 2017.
I watched a couple episodes of it. The show itself wasn't terrible.
No, the show isn't bad if they didn't try to make it that this is Liam Neeson's character in his formative years. How he developed his certain set of skills.
Yeah.
I will find you and I will kill you.
So, yeah, they did 08.
Also,
2012 and 2014.
I ventured over into Canada. And while in Canada, I had to honor our friend and former guest, Jeremy Burden. I searched the city of Vancouver
to find poutine.
And I had poutine.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
It was so ridiculously good.
Yeah.
So good. Yes. I took a selfie with my poutine and sent it to Jeremy, and it was delicious.
Yeah. Did he appreciate that?
He did. Yeah.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, no, it's like, again, I think that as Americans, we have just everything that has a fry base, like you would use chips for nachos. We call it a poutine based dish, but like real poutine, the cheese, gravy, that kind of stuff. It's a different animal.
And our cheese curds here are breaded and deep fried.
Many times.
These were just cheese, and it melted with the fries and the gravy melted. Oh, it was a very nice.
Hey, speaking
dish.
of cheese curds, how excited is your bride that we're getting a Culver's?
Very excited about Culver's. Yeah.
We're like less than a month from Cane's opening.
Yeah, July 9th.
So I'm so sorry to tell you that we tried, and then our tournament ended sooner than we hoped when we were at the state tournament. But we tried to go to In-N-Out, and because every baseball, softball, track and field, tennis, and something else was all there. We went to go to In-N-Out one night and ended up like the line was wrapped, and I think they might have even had like people from other businesses like almost angrily yelling at people going, "You cannot come into our parking lot." And so we ended up having to go. I think we ended up at Whataburger. Which is fine.
Whataburgers, I mean,
it's fine. It's better than a lot of fast food. It's definitely better than McDonald's and things like that.
Had Shake Shack in the airport in Charlotte. That's delicious.
Crazy.
So
I forget
good.
it's there.
So good.
Yeah. So anyway, I still haven't had
Not
In-N-Out.
but really
I still haven't
good.
had In-N-Out. We did try and go though. Ate in like an incredible little restaurant with some of the families one night. And we had a blast sitting around just talking about life and raising kids and all those things. And so, yeah, but I missed In-N-Out, and I was so sad that I didn't get to bring that up here and do this.
Yeah. I went to Pike Place Market, saw him throw the fish, ate some smoked salmon that was incredible. We went to the original #1 Starbucks. You know what a big coffee fan my wife is, Starbucks fan. It was closed for renovations, but we took pictures outside of the #1 Starbucks. And we many times, right down from the place where we were staying in Blaine, Washington, was voted the nicest Starbucks in the world.
So Amanda booked this vacation. She did all the
She did
work.
all of it.
All y'all had
All
to
of
do was
it.
pack your bags and you knew where you were going. You had to look at the weather for the week.
Yep.
Pack your bags and be at the airplane.
And
on
even
time.
that, I was saying, all right, we're going tomorrow. What activity? What are we doing? How should I pack? Are we doing a ton of hiking? Are we doing this?
And she just said yes.
Packed it all. Yep. Pack it all.
Pack it.
Pack it all.
And so all the places in the world that your wife could have booked a trip, and she books it next to the original Starbucks just so she can go there.
That's the only
and
reason we did
closed.
there. Yeah, it's the only reason.
Not about
we went.
not about the hikes.
Had
not about
nothing
the
to
experience.
do with
It
Seattle and the Space Needle and whale watching and the National Cascades and Canada
over to Canada,
poaching. It was
anything like
the
that.
only reason we did it was for the original Starbucks. And we got there, and it had a little piece of paper on it that said "closed for renovations."
Oh, Amanda, if you have hung on this long, I so love you, but I will forever call that is exactly what I will call that trip is Amanda's failed attempt to see the first Starbucks.
Yes, and I will say this: so we spent a few days in Seattle before we headed up to northern Washington.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. She surprised me by taking me to a Mariners game. Check T-Mobile Park off of the list. But
how many does that make now?
11, I think.
It's hard, isn't it?
Enough.
It's hard to see them all. It really is.
And Mount Rainier, you see pictures. Mm-hmm. Seattle was one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been in. It was
great stuff.
magnificent. And you have this, it looked fake. It honestly looked fake. Mount Rainier in the background. And so she says, we were in Seattle for the first 3 nights of our trip, but then we're going to Blaine, Washington, which is about 2 hours north of Seattle, right on the Canadian border, for 7 nights. And then back to Seattle to fly out. We flew in and out of Seattle. And so it's our day to travel 2 hours up to Blaine for our week long there. And she says, we've got Mount Rainier. It wasn't on our agenda, but you can see it from everywhere. It looks absolutely magnificent. She said, let's do it. Problem is, Mount Rainier is 2 hours south. And so it'd be a 2-hour drive south, then a 4-hour drive back up north, plus everything that we're doing in Mount Rainier. So I'm like, I just don't know. And it's Seattle. Seattle's known for rainy weather, cloudy, gloomy. And so I look up Mount Rainier, how to spend a day on Mount Rainier. What do we do? What can happen? And it says you don't want, if there's cloud cover, you will get socked in. I've never heard of this term socked in before. And so I look up socked in, and it means you can't see anything. You can't see in front of you because the fog is so thick on Mount Rainier. And so I say to my family, I'm worried that we're going to drive 2 hours out of the way and we're going to get socked in. Like, what's socked in? They're like, I explained socked in. Well, no. We're going to be great. So we drive 2 hours to Mount Rainier, And I mean,
She sent Melissa a picture. We were driving
socked
somewhere.
in is not even a thing. Now, I will say this. I'm glad we did it. It was really incredible.
Because that 2-hour drive and then 4-hour drives is way closer than the 30-some hour drive I think that it would take to get from here to there.
Yeah, right. You're there one time, you should do it. And we saw some really beautiful things. But she showed me this picture of what we were going to see when we got to this place that she wanted to go in Mount Rainier. Like, yeah, that's awesome, but I hope we're not socked in. And we get to the lookout that we're supposed to be. You couldn't see. Like, well, that's a beautiful view of white.
You should have held up your phone and then taken a picture of the phone and then the stuff behind it to where one of those, this is what we were here for. And so that would have been good. Yep. Hey, I'm glad you're back.
Hey, glad to be back. Glad that you're back. And that is all of the time that we have for this recap edition of the Pulpit and Porch podcast. And I think that maybe the biggest thing that we learned this last month out of the 6 conversations that we have is that everybody has a story. Most people are walking around carrying things that we know absolutely nothing about. And maybe the greatest gift that we can give people is simply being willing to listen to them, which is kind of the point of this whole show. Pull up a chair, have a conversation, listen to a story, because everyone has a story worth sharing and everyone has a story worth hearing. So we do want to thank you for listening, tuning in, joining us on this edition of the Pulpit and Porch. It's good to be back with my friend Robert. We want to encourage you to subscribe to our show wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Follow us, like us, listen to us on Facebook. Hey, and engage with some of the stuff that we're doing on social media, because we're posting out a lot of content that we would love to get your comments on. And we'll see you next week right here on The Porch.